Alright, so today I want to talk about one of the most important aspects of long-range precision rifle shooting, or actually any type of precision rifle shooting, and that is rifle setup. There's a handful of things that you can set your rifle up with that will add to your ability to be accurate, consistent at distance. Now, each of these things is not required for long-range precision shooting or precision shooting, but each one of these things will add to your ability to be successful at that task. So, we'll go through the list here and then we'll talk about each one of them. So first off, we've got scope, proper scope setup, length of pull, setting up your proper length of pull, your bipod or front rest, your cheek riser, your grip, and your bag rider, butt hook, or both. So we'll go through this list and explain and talk about why each one of these things can be an advantage in long-range precision shooting. So first off is scope. If you start off with a scope that is not properly set up, you are setting yourself up for failure from the get-go. There's many videos online that will that you can use as reference on how to properly set up a scope. And if you have any questions on how to properly set up your scope, level your scope and all that, I recommend finding one of those videos and following the instructions, because that is a extremely important aspect. If you don't have your scope set up perfectly level, so making sure your scope is level from the get-go, especially in long-range precision shooting, you are going to be dialing up or holding over the target. So when you do that, if your scope is not your scope is not tracking perfectly vertically, then as you dial up, not only is that going to throw your shot off to one side or the other, whichever way you have that leaning, but it will also make it that so that the amount of travel that you have dialed or held is not actually perfectly correct, because it is not a perfect line straight up to the point that you are dialing to. So making sure your rifle scope is level is probably the most important aspect. And the second part of it is eye relief. And most of these videos will show you how to properly set up your eye relief, and that is a very important aspect. You want to make sure that when you lay behind the rifle, you are completely comfortable and that the eye relief is set up to your eyeball and that you are not too close or too far away from the scope when laying behind the rifle or sitting behind the rifle, or however you're shooting precision rifles. So, and also, a scope is not an absolutely necessary tool to be accurate at precision shooting, but especially in long-range precision shooting, it is almost a required tool. So another part of that is bubble level. So not only do we want to make sure our reticle is straight, but we want to make sure when we fire, when we let loose of that shot, that our scope and everything is completely level. That way, we are tracking along that perfect vertical line that we have dialed to. And having a bubble level on a scope is the best way to know that you are tracking vertically. If you have any questions on why bubble level is so important, long-range precision shooters of Utah, sorry, did a video years ago on the importance of a bubble level. And if you have any questions, I would advise going and checking out that video and using it as reference, because it shows just why having a bubble level on your rifle is such an important tool. So second, we've got length of pull. So setting up your proper length of pull on your rifle is an absolute necessity. So if you don't know how to set up your length of pull, it is very easy. So you can take your rifle, set the butt of the rifle into the crook of your elbow, grab your grip, and then put your finger on the trigger. Your finger should be at a perfect 90-degree angle. That allows you to pull the rifle straight to the rear, pull the trigger straight to the rear. And in precision shooting of any type, pulling everything straight back to the rear in a perfect line is how you manage recoil coming straight back, and is how it helps you to be consistent from shot to shot. So setting up your length of pull is a big aspect of precision shooting that is often overlooked. A lot of people don't worry about their length of pull. They set their rifle up, they lay down behind it, and when they go to shoot it, they don't, as long as that rifle feels comfortable, they don't worry about if their length of pull is actually correctly set. And it can make a difference in pulling that trigger straight to the rear. And you may think that, okay, well, I've got a really light trigger, so even if I break that shot pulling one way or the other, it's not really going to matter because it's not going to upset my shot that much because it's a very light trigger when it breaks. Well, every bit of movement that is not perfectly straight back will, in some way, shape, or form, throw off your shot from being consistent from shot to shot. The next is bipod or front rest. Now, a bipod is not a necessity. I have shot rifles and seen many people shoot off of front rests. So one of those rests that you can get, that you can put a little bag into and slide and everything. Or a bipod. And setting up a bipod is another thing that is often overlooked and not understood. So when you are setting up a bipod, the first thing you need to think about is having that bipod as far forward on your forend as possible. And why is that? Because the further forward, you got to think about how a rifle sits. So this rifle is sitting here, and there's 3 points of contact on the ground. There is the butt, which is where you're going to be laying, so that will still be a point of contact, and the 2 legs. So the further forward those 2 legs are, the more space that you have in between there, the more stable you will be. It's just like anything. If you set up a triangle that the feet are very close together, then that triangle is not going to be as stable as if you set up a triangle where the feet are spread further apart. Just like a tripod that you would set a camera up on. You don't set that tripod up with the legs close together. You set them up with the legs spread out as far as you can to make sure that tripod is as stable as possible. And that is the same train of thought that you need to be thinking of when setting up your precision rifle. Another part of that is how wide is your footprint of your bipod. So if you guys have noticed, I've set both these rifles up now here just recently with Atlas 5H bipods, an absolutely awesome bipods that I've wanted for a long time. And these allow the footprint to be very wide, also widening that triangle. And another part of it is they allow the bore to be inside the triangle that the bipod itself makes. And what that does is, just like I said in the bipod review video that I did the other day, if you are hanging a rifle inside of a triangle, it's going to be much more stable than setting something on top of that triangle and teetering. So that's why there are many bipods, in my opinion, that are somewhat counterintuitive to precision shooting. And a bipod that has a wider stance and a wider footprint at the top will allow that bore to sit further down inside the triangle, allowing you to be more accurate. The next one is cheek riser. So it really doesn't matter how you build your cheek comb up, as long as you have built the cheek comb up or you have a stock that has a high enough cheek comb that allows your eyeball to be perfectly in line with your optic. So there's a couple of reasons that this is helpful. One is for comfort. The more comfortable you are behind the rifle when you lay down or sit behind that rifle, the more consistent you will be. On top of that, being in line with the scope perfectly allows that if you don't have your parallax set perfectly or something, you're in a hurry, it allows you to get to be consistent when you are behind that rifle, and looking down the very center of the tube allows you to have less scope shadow, which will throw off your shot. So having a proper cheek rest or cheek riser is a very important aspect of precision shooting. And like I said, it doesn't matter. This is a soft cheek riser that I have set up on this, and it works just as good as this hard cheek riser on the Luth AR stock here. And both of them accomplish the same goals. Both of them are set up very similar for both rifles, and both of them help me to be consistent when shooting long-range precision. The next is the grip. The more vertical, if you notice, a lot of precision rifle stocks will have a very vertical grip. And the reason for that is just like when pulling your trigger straight to the rear, when you grab that grip and use the grip to pull the rifle to your shoulder, the more vertical it is, the more you're going to be pulling that rifle straight to the rear and not up or down or whichever way the grip is shaped. That's why you see vertical grips typically on precision rifles. So that allows the recoil to travel straight back to the rear, not only not throwing off your shot as much, but allowing you to stay on the scope and spot your shot easier. So having a proper grip that is vertical. And if you'll notice on this rifle, I actually have a grip that is not very vertical, and I actually plan to change that here very soon. I've used this grip for a long time. I've not had a big issue with it. I am able to control recoil straight to the rear, but it is not a grip that I would recommend if somebody was starting from scratch. So I will be changing this grip here in the near future, but that is why having the more vertical your grip is, the more successful you can be, or the more it adds to your ability to be successful at distance. And the last part is a bag rider or butt hook or both. If you'll notice, both of these rifles are set up with some sort of butt hook. They also have the butt hook that I actually made this butt hook for this rifle because there was no option in the HS Precision stock to have a proper butt hook. I prefer, now you don't have to shoot with a butt hook. A lot of people just use their vertical grip to allow them to pull the rifle straight to the rear, and preloading the bipod to give them their stability, and don't worry about using a butt hook and just use their other hand to control the bag. Well, I personally prefer a butt hook so that I can not only be controlling the bag, but at the same time be having that extra ability to pull the rifle tight to my shoulder. The tighter the rifle is to your shoulder, the less recoil you have, or the less visibly the rifle moves, and the less the rifle moves, the more consistent you will be from shot to shot typically. So if you'll notice, like I did a review / comparison of the Luth AR, the Magpul PRS, and the Mission First Tactical utility stock recently, and each one of those has some sort of butt hook, and I explained in that video why the Luth AR is actually my favorite of those three, and why a butt hook is a very important part of precision shooting. So on top of that, the bag rider, and like I said, both of these, bag rider and butt hook, are not something that are a requirement by any means, but they absolutely are a help. The bag rider, if you notice here, is just this flat, what we call a bag rider, is just this flat piece here on the bottom of the stock. And what that allows to happen is, just like we're trying to control recoil, we're going to have some sort of recoil no matter what. And if you have that flat bag rider, that allows that rifle to slide in that bag and continue that perfectly straight rearward motion. So each one of these things are something that you can use to set up your rifle with to help you be consistent at distance, or at any distance. I mean, like I said in the beginning, none of these things are absolutely required, but each one of these things, as you build up a rifle, as you start to understand how it works and why it works, you will start to understand how each one of these things can help you to be successful. If you have more than one rifle, if you'll notice, I have set both of these rifles up, even though one is a chassis rifle, one is a stock rifle, both of them precision rifles. I have both of these rifles set up almost identically, so that when I lay down behind the two different rifles, they feel the same to me, even though one is in a chassis and one is in a stock. So if you start getting into multiple rifles, the closer you can set those two rifles up together, so that everything is almost the same or is the same, the more consistent you can be, due to having proper muscle memory. If you have muscle memory of one system and then you lay behind the other system and it's the exact same, then you can use that same muscle memory to guide that system straight to the rear and be consistent and be accurate. So I hope this was helpful. I hope you guys have thought about setting up your rifle stocks, and hope, if you haven't, this is some data to help you properly set up your precision rifle stock to be successful at distance. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I'll see you guys next time. I'm out.